What's going on, people? It's Mr. Do Daily back again for the first Dialing with Des of the new year. Back after the World Cup break, being eagerly awaiting the return, just like all Forest fans, of action at the City Ground. And yesterday, of course, the Reds got a point against Chelsea. Good game. Game of two halves, in my opinion. Come back to that shortly, give you my thoughts on it. But as ever, just welcome you to DoreOnTour. It's not the man himself. He's been busy putting out content, but it's my regular slot back on a Monday night. If you want to get involved, please do. Please join me live on here this evening to talk about yesterday's game, all things Forest, transfer window, and look forward to this week's fixtures as well. It's a busy period. Of course, Christmas normally is, but coming back after the World Cup and the Cup runs, we've got a really good bit to go at, haven't we? So looking forward to inviting as many people on as I can. Really hope you can join me. Of course, if we could just get through some housework. If you're brand new to the channel, please do subscribe to DoreOnTour. We'd really, really appreciate that. Trying to get Dore to 11,000. It seemed like only 2 minutes ago we was asking for 6,000, 7,000, whatever. But of course, his recent injection and his touch of good fortune via Mr. Beast, meaning he smashed that 10k mark. So all subscribers are welcome, and of course, do like this episode to support me if you can. I'd really, really appreciate that. Just a normal Forest fan talking about Forest. That's all I want to do. Whilst I'm supporting Dore in his channel, it's just about extending the conversation, enjoying the match, looking forward to whatever's coming up and trying to sort of have some real good conversation around it. This is what the show's all about. Just lots of enthusiasm, positivity. And of course, I've got a YouTube channel. So if you would be so kind, head over and find Do Daily. Spelt it as it is there on the screen, all one word. And please subscribe to my channel as well. It's not a football channel. I talk about different things, about being positive and enthusiastic. Of course, with the new year, I'm looking at setting goals and targets and just trying to sort of work on a bit of self-development. It's not the easiest thing to try and sell. So if you could support me on that, that'd be absolutely fantastic. But of course, I'm here this evening to support DoreOnTour, to talk about Forest, to talk about football, something I think I've probably got more knowledge about, hopefully. Some people probably tell me I'm talking rubbish about this too. More knowledge than my own channel, where I touch on encouraging activity and mental health and things like that. It's like I say, that's a hard sell. But this, going to the football like I do, spending my time around people, having lots of conversations, putting things out there on Twitter, it just gives an opportunity to get it all out and to speak about it. Sometimes things can be a little bit misconstrued when you put it out in written form. So again, this is a great chance to get involved. If you want to come on, the link is there somewhere, I believe. I'm hoping Mr. Dore's put it there. If not, just click on the link and we'll be able to get you in. Got one or two people waiting. Please drop a comment. I'll try and get through as many of those as I can. Of course, it's always great to receive those and know that people are looking in and seeing what we're up to. When it comes to yesterday's game, of course, that's going to be much of the conversation, I'd imagine, this evening. That eagerly awaited return to the City Ground. It was a good one, wasn't it? Really, really enjoyed it. I thought the first half, Forest started okay-ish, but then once they'd conceded the goal, my personal opinion is that we showed Chelsea too much respect. I didn't think we got in their faces enough. I think we let them sort of see out the first half in control. Of course, they've got some good players, some good midfield players who were very technical and of course, are gifted for the level they've been playing at. But for me, we didn't quite do enough. Second half, of course, we all seen what happened. Come out in determined and spirited fashion and really took the game to Chelsea. I thought certain players had the best games of the club. I think all that will become clear what I actually thought of individual performance as we go through the show. Lots of people with lots of things to say. Me personally, I thought Bolly was fantastic. I thought he had a real good game. I thought a few players had their best game for Forest. And for me, that included Bolly. And of course, Awonyi, who got the supporters man of the match and man of the match in various other places.
But again, Morgan Gibbs-White, how important is he? I'm a massive fan. Everybody who watches this show knows that. But just pulling the strings. Saw an highlights reel earlier this evening, and he was involved in every highlight. And this is what I was saying earlier in the season when I wanted us to sign him from Wolves. He was involved in everything. And he's the player that I feel we need to be building the team around. And you know, he's got that star quality. When we get one or two others, I think we'll be really firing. So as the game sort of wore on, I thought, if I'm really honest, you know, I might get a bit of criticism for this, but I thought that sorry, just turned my phone off there. As the game wore on, I thought both teams probably settled for a point. And that's a compliment to Forest. You know, I felt Chelsea settled in as well. Both teams thought, well, we've had the best of both halves. And as it really wore on, I thought that they'd kind of settled for it. Some really good performances all round. You know, players hopefully coming into form. So if you've got anything to say about those, and I touched on the upcoming fixtures, I'd really like to hear it. Before I get into these comments, I'd just like to wish everybody a happy new year. Hopefully you've had a great Christmas. You know, I've had a good one. The football coming back's made it, hasn't it? You know, lucky enough to go to Valencia and go to Man United and go to Blackburn before that. So again, lots of football. I feel very fortunate to be able to attend and get to witness it for myself. And I think that's important for me when I'm doing this is to be able to sort of talk about it and give my opinions. I don't like all that technical stuff. I like getting to the crux of it and knowing what's on people's minds. So that's what Monday night's all about. Hopefully in the coming weeks, you know, we can sort of build on this. We can build on the positivity, hopefully pick up one or two more results. Southampton coming on Wednesday, of course. It looks like an opportunity, but I'm sure most people like me and not taking it for granted. It's one we could easily slip up in as well. And some of the good work we did on Sunday might just be sort of undone just a tad. So there's lots to discuss tonight. Like I say, I mentioned those comments. I'll get through a couple. Brian Clough says, should not have, but if you only play one half, you only get half the result, don't you? Something I touched on there. Marley says, you're okay? I'm good. Hope you are too. Hope you're enjoying the show already, but hopefully you enjoy the show this evening. The True Red said, evening, Des. Sam Surridge is linked with a club I work for, Burnley. That's interesting. I've not seen that, but he's been a bit restricted on his game time, hasn't he? Perhaps that might be discussed throughout the show as well with some of the guests. Dylan says, hello, Big Des. How's it going? Good game yesterday. Looking forward to Wednesday night. You Reds. Me too, Dylan. Of course, I'm going down there. Looking forward to the game. Hopefully we can get a result and bring some points back. And that might just finally take us out the relegation zone. And what a nice feeling that would be early in 2023. It'd give us a lot to be optimistic about as the year sort of gears up, you know, when the fixtures start coming thick and fast. He said, good evening, Des. Hope you're well. Happy New Year. I'm doing some drawings while watching and listening at the same time. Fantastic, Eve. I got my calendar yesterday. I managed to pick it up from the guys outside the boot room near the City ground before the game. Really enjoyed flicking through that. So I'll be putting up. Thanks for all the work you did there. And, of course, Happy New Year. Ricky said, need to collect as many points from the next few games from the sides in the bottom half. Absolutely. I think Sky put up a caption, didn't they, of the next 7 games. There was 1 or 2 cup games in their mind, but 5 of the next 7 are league games, but they're also against teams in the bottom half. And this is what's going to define a season, isn't it? There was much said after Manchester United last week and the performance back in the league, and we didn't win, and it was a big team, and we didn't do too much in the game. Got some opinions on that as well. I'm sure that's going to all come through. But of course, those are not the games to define a season. It's these games that are coming up. Whilst we'd love to get points, we'd love to be a little bit more competitive. We'd love to show a bit more quality, perhaps even score in one of those away games. Do you know, I make no bones about that. It's just where we're at the moment as a team. So, yeah, hopefully we're doing okay. We'll be doing okay before we know it. Peter says, hi, Des. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Peter. Thanks for tuning in. Chris,
making progress, albeit glacially. Absolutely. We're chipping away. And on that Man United performance, I felt, whilst it wasn't great, I'm not happy clapping. I'm not saying it as it wasn't. It wasn't fantastic at all. And there were things. I was really frustrated at the goals we conceded. I put something out through the pitch footy work I do on Twitter. Please give me a follow on that, by the way, and check out what I do there. A bit of a preview and a short review of the game, about a minute long. But I put something out there saying the goals were really, really frustrating because it felt like we could have avoided them. When I saw Cooper's interview after, he said that too, so it was interesting. So, yeah, I think from that Man United game, it's improvement on where we were when we played City, when we played Newcastle, when we played Arsenal and Leicester earlier in the season. For all Man United's faults, they're still a good team these days, and it's proving with some of the results they're picking up. So really pleased about that. Moving on, John says, does Steve Cooper start Scarpa on Wednesday, or is it better not to change the side that's starting to perform? I think it'd be harsh if he did. Of course, we're all excited about Scarpa. We're all looking forward to what he's got to offer. I saw him firsthand in Valencia in this game that's given us all this optimism, and he was fantastic for 20 minutes. He was absolutely amazing. If that's the player we're going to get treated to at the City ground and when we go away, he's going to be a hell of a player. Really exciting, really positive. Played off the front foot, which I like. Again, a bit like in the Morgan Gibbs White mould. Not the same type of player, but a bit in that mould where he plays off the front foot and they make things happen. So I'm hoping that he does get plenty of game time. We do see a really good player. But again, I'm not going to sort of shy away from the things I've said recently. Just a bit of caution with this one. Playing 20 minutes in Valencia, in a pre-season, mid-season friendly as it was, is a little bit different than performing in the Premier League. So whilst I'd love him to be an absolute superstar, let's wait and see. Wednesday, it depends, doesn't it? It depends who's fit. I know Morgan Gibbs White played yesterday after his layoff. Jesse's sort of, there's rumours he might be out for a week, 2 weeks, a month. Who knows these days with injuries? See how he goes. But again, the guys who played yesterday did okay. They did well. So I think it was important. I'd envisage at this point, without thinking about that question too much, it will probably be the same team. If Scarpa can find a way onto the bench, who knows? He could be just that spark if things weren't going too well. Again, the True Red yesterday was brilliant. Far too much respect was given in the first half. You can't do that in the Premier League. Second half should have won the amount of chances Chelsea never really threatened. Absolutely, and I agree with all of that. I've said as much already, apart from the fact, how bad was Chelsea? You'd be fuming if you was a Chelsea fan, but let's not dwell on that too much. We're here to talk about Forest and what they achieved yesterday. So just get through a couple more of these before we get the first guest in. There's a couple of guys eagerly awaiting. Colin says, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Colin. Thanks for joining the show. Kieran says, hello, Des. Hope you're well. See you at 9:30. Why aren't you here at 9? Dawn says, hi, Des. Did you see the referee yesterday was a massive Chelsea fan, according to Wikipedia? And Dawn, that was all a farce as well. I can't believe you got taken in by it. Mark says, evening, Des. No link to join up yet. Where's Mr. Doran posting that link? But I can see Mark's now waiting, so that's not a problem. Do find that link. James says, evening, Des. Happy New Year to you, mate. Good to see you back. Good game last night, wasn't it? It was indeed. And that's what we're waiting for. There's that link, by the way. But just responding to James's comment there about it was a good game. It really was, wasn't it? And I actually put something out on my own social media talking about the feeling going back into the City ground. I actually got goosebumps walking down Collick Road, climbing up the steps into the Bridgeford stand. And it just reminded me of how much I've missed it as much as anything. So it's all right being pessimistic and worrying about relegation and can we do this? And of course, this is what we're here to talk about. I'm not sort of putting anyone off, but I just wanted to get in there and enjoy a football match. And that's what we was able to do, wasn't we? With the fact that Chelsea scored that fortunate goal, very fortunate. because even for their possession and the fact we probably give them too much respect, they shouldn't have really gone in front. But they did. They scored that fortunate goal, and it's always good to come back in a game as well, isn't it? So really enjoyed that aspect of it. So yeah, definitely James. But there's the link. It's in the comments there. So please do use that where you can. Dore told him to come on at 9:30. You're forgiven, Kieran. Good to have you on. James said, I'd say the subject to recovery unchanged side. Quite possibly, I believe that might be the case, but I just wouldn't know. You never know with who's fit, and the amount of games in the next few weeks and what's gone already. Rebel City Red said, "Happy New Year, Des, and to all the Red Dogs." Talking of dogs, Gravy missing Stan. Gravy's missing Stan. I'm not. He's eating my Sky remote today. Anybody who doesn't know Stan, it's the puppy we got recently, so he's in bad books at the moment. But thanks for all those comments. Keep them coming. Really do appreciate them. Once again, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. All we're trying to do here is be really, really positive about what happens at Forest. Dore pulls out the content. Lots of vlogs, pre-match predictions, post-match vlogs, review shows, preview shows. You know, he's busy at it. We all know how hard he works and how enthusiastic and enjoyable it is to watch him doing what he does. Whilst I might not have that kind of charisma, what I try to do is articulate it and make it sort of a worthwhile watch and get people involved and let them have their say too. So really appreciate all your input. Please do drop this episode a like, and of course do subscribe to Doors and Do Daily. That would be absolutely fantastic. So without going on too much, massive intro there, I'm going to get Albertus in. Good evening, Albertus. Are you all right?
Hey, I'm fine. How are you, Des?
I'm good, thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, all the way from Canada.
It's great to have you on board. What's on your mind about Forest tonight?
Just positivity. I think it's a lot of positive signs. I know the beginning of the season was a little bit rough to kind of handle and to watch, but it kind of was expected because the team was for all intents and purposes, a brand new team, other than a few players that kind of were rotating in and out. So a ton of positivity. I think looking at like the effort in the City game, the Arsenal game, even the Leicester game, comparing that to the Man U game earlier, and then yesterday against Chelsea, almost looks like a different team. I didn't feel that Forest were embarrassed at all against Manchester United. I thought that they looked strong. They looked like they a couple breaks here and there, the game could have gone very differently. If Bali wasn't an inch or two offsides, that's a 2-1 game, and who knows how the second half would have went with Forest 2-1 down instead of 2-0 down, and only losing. And the second half performance against Chelsea was absolutely fantastic. I think that quarterfinal coming up against Wolves, that's winnable. So Forest could potentially be in a semifinal. It's amazing to think that Cooper has gotten this team, and the team itself has gotten into 2 quarterfinals in the space of a calendar year, which is absolutely fantastic. That can't be understated, the accomplishment that brings in. But favorable matchup in the first round of the FA Cup, that's something to really look forward to. I think that Forest can win that one and move on. And just really excited about the next sets of games, because it really is a league of it's like 2 leagues. There's the top half of the table, and like the top 6 or 7 teams, and then the rest of the league. And Forest, apart from City, Leicester, and Arsenal, haven't been embarrassed, I guess you could say. Not been perfect by any means. You could probably pick apart every single player and say this player didn't do well this game, this player didn't do well this game. And even like Johnson, some suggest maybe he could have squared things up and maybe it would have been 2-1 yesterday. But even with Johnson,
that, Albertus, James says, I know Johnson is trying to score, but I believe he's a bit selfish with the ball. That should have crossed to Awoniyi. Do you know what? I interrupted you there because I was storing that comment to mention later on. But you mentioned that about Johnson. Do you know what I'll say about that? I've seen a lot of talk of this on social media today. From where I sat in the Bridgeford stand, I was screaming at Johnson to shoot. The angle wasn't there. His body shape was all wrong. Do you know? And it's easy sometimes when you sat in different parts of the ground to see it a little bit differently, or watching it on TV. It all seems very simple for him to make that pass. And I don't want to defend Johnson just for the sake of it, but I was screaming, shoot, because a one you wasn't in the right position either. And yes, the shot wasn't perfect, but I think it's just important sometimes. And of course, we're on here to talk about perspective. You know, I saw that from a completely different sort of angle. I was behind it, literally right behind it. From the angle he was shooting at, I was sat high in the stand and I could see the positioning. And I thought it was so interesting how much flack he's got for that today. When my personal opinion, you know, if he'd have tried to square it, I'd have been moaning that he'd not shot. So again, I just thought that was worth mentioning. Sorry to interrupt, but it's definitely to get in.
What I was going to say about Johnson is some of the stuff he does with outside of the box and outside of that final third, like when the ball is just about to cross over the line, and how he's able to oftentimes keep it alive and get it back into position for that. We kind of focus a lot, like Erling Haaland is one of those that gets a lot of chip ins and gets a lot of credit for being a goal scoring monster, but he's got to have the people to feed him the ball in there. And a lot of our players are starting to get that. So you can see them feeding the ball in, and you look at, I think it was Yates who got that ball into, whoever got the ball into Aurier. Like that was a phenomenal, like just to get the ball in there was great. We looked much better with our corners, but Johnson makes a lot of trouble for a lot of people all over the pitch. And if he can just get that final third, he can be really, really, really good. So I'm not writing him off. There are, I know in the Blackburn game, there was a few opportunities that I saw him, and he did get his goals in that one. But there were a few opportunities where I thought, like, oh, maybe he could have passed it to somebody. But he's learning. And so are a lot of the players on the team. They're learning. They're trying to get used to playing together. It seems that Cooper's settled on a fairly stable lineup over the last few games. Injuries, of course, are happening, but he's starting to get an idea of who this team is. And then now the players are settling into it. I thought to myself, why isn't Awanye kind of sitting in the middle? Why is he on the wing? But we don't know what goes on in training. We don't know what decisions are made, or who's looking good, who's looking bad, who's looking better in a position. So we might think, okay, well, yeah, he's going to be a striker. We're going to put him in the middle, but maybe on the training ground, they've worked stuff out, or he's played better than anybody else. I don't think Cooper is just saying, well, we're going to put him on the wing just to put him on the wing. I think that there's probably something behind all of that.
Well, again, I totally agree with that, because again, against Manchester United, I saw massive improvement from Awanye in the Manchester United game. Wasn't perfect. I don't think he was perfect yesterday. We're looking at a player who's improving. I want if he was a regular striker, that wouldn't have been a man of the match performance. But he's a guy who's improving. So credit where it's due. He's doing well. I saw that improvement in the Man United game as well. Not quite as much as yesterday, and everybody was criticising the fact that he played down the left-hand side. But he worked that line really well. You know, it looks like he wants to cut in off that side. And one thing I will say, with the players playing in the wide positions, they've got to do a bit more work. You know, they've got to carry the and if you everybody shouting Awanye number 9 man up top. Let's be honest here, he doesn't hold the ball up very well. You know, he tends to be better for Forest when he's running at people. That unpredictability is taking him forward at the moment. It's the unpredictability of what he's going to do next. Holding the ball up is not his strength. It bounces off him, and when you've got a true, genuine number 9, what you want them to do is hold the ball up. It sticks there, and Johnson and whoever's right and left can move on from it or in towards them, and the midfield can push up as well. and you can move up as a unit. That's not been happening. So it's all right to start shouting a 1 year number 9, you know. And one other thing I think might have been a factor yesterday with a 1 year playing up top, because he did do it against Liverpool, and he had a much. He played well in that game as well. So I won't take it completely away from him. But you've got to think, Morgan Gibbs-White is just coming back from injury. And is he still a little bit injured? I've no idea, you know. But would Cooper want Morgan Gibbs-White running all over the pitch, tracking back, doing what he has to do, you know, if he's carrying a little bit of a knock? We're already short on numbers with Jesse Lingard. And let's be honest, it looks like Cooper tends to favour 3 of a 1 year Johnson, Gibbs-White and Lingard. They seem to be the 4 he trusts. Surridge is not getting much of a look in. Dennis is not getting much of a look in. So he's got, with Lingard injured, he's got those 3 and he's got to find a way. I saw that improvement against Man United, so I had no problems in playing down the left. Puts in a man of the match performance, and all of a sudden, people are a little quieter on this whole number 9 thing, you know. So I think that was a good point you raised as well. I think it was a really interesting thing to talk about, because yes, we're seeing lots of improvement from this guy, this guy 1 year, but he's not the finished article, is he? And to put all your faith in him in that number 9 role, I think it's a little bit too soon.
Well, and like the cool thing is against Chelsea, could have been 2-1 if Gibbs-White had if it hit the crossbar a fraction underneath the crossbar, that would have went in. And so that puts it 2-1. So chances are coming, as opposed to the City game where it didn't even look like Forest even touched the ball. Whereas now we're getting the ball into the box. Now we're taking shots. Now we look like we are a threat. And there's a lot of favorable games coming up, which is exciting. And crucial games have to come away with at least a point against Southampton, if not more. Have to come away against Leicester with points. Have to come away 3 points for sure against Leicester. Have to do well against all of these 5 matchups, in these league matchups that are coming up. And the great thing is we're not even halfway done the season and only 3 points off of 14th. So that's a phenomenal place to be in. If anyone remembers or was paying attention, last season, Liverpool were 15 points off of City at about the halfway point. And then that gap was gone. So tons and tons and tons of points. I think you had said a while ago, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's always stuck with me, because that's what this season is. It's a marathon and not a sprint.
I think it's interesting you use that analogy, because I'm looking at a comment here. Albertus, great job running in the sub-zero temperatures last week. So I thought that as well. Well, of course, you know, running is my thing.
Yeah.
And I'm training for the London Marathon this year. So good luck with all of that. But what I will say, Albertus, some great points here, some great discussion. Always great to have you on. You know, love following your stuff. Go find him on Twitter. You know, some great posting and lots of positivity. Lots to look forward to, isn't there? That very last point you made about it's a marathon, not a sprint. It looks so much better now, doesn't it? It looks so 100%. Much better. And we've got so many reasons to be optimistic. But again, really appreciate you coming in and starting the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's always a blast. And have a great week, Des. And I'll be watching on Wednesday and cheer loud if you're there.
All right, mate. We'll give him a cheer for you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Cheers. That's Albertus there. Some great things to talk about the games. A few things I wanted to get out of my chest anyway about it. Really prompted me. Really enjoyed having him on. Go through some of these comments again before we get the next guest in. Jem said it was on about that cross from, well, what could have been a cross from Johnson to a 1 year where he shot. Silva would have blocked it. What a player he is, by the way. So for all we played well, you know, that guy, he showed some real class. I didn't rate many around him, but for them, I thought he was a class act. Paul says, evening there's a bit late on parade tonight. I'm afraid not got back to normal routine yet following all these bank holidays. I don't think any of us have the Paul. I'm struggling to get my jobs done before I go back to work tomorrow. So, but thanks for tuning in anyway. Ricky says, read somewhere that we may offload Dennis to free up space for other signings. I think people know my thoughts on Dennis if they watch any DoreOnTour. I'm not a fan. It seems like he's not in favour. I said there, it seems like Cooper tends to trust 3 from 4, and possibly even Johnson the 1 year and Morgan Gibbs-White to some degree. But Dennis, he's not getting a start, is he? And there's talk at the moment about players coming in and players going out. And there's that guy, Scarpa, sitting on the bench who's got everyone's tongue wagging. Does he play on Wednesday? Touched on this earlier, James. I'm not sure. I'm not sure at the moment. It depends who's fit, who's available. I'd like to see him on the bench. Whilst we're a bit short on numbers, it will be especially reassuring to have somebody who's exciting and who's potentially a match winner. We don't quite know how it's going to turn out, but we'd like to see him on the bench and at least have the opportunity of a bit of game time. The game's not going our way, who knows? And here's another one. Rebel City Red, can't see Cooper initially using Scarpa off the bench to acclimatise him to the Prem. Oh, sorry, can see. Yeah, and that's just what I said there, isn't it? That's just my point exactly. That's what I'm saying. So some good comments there. Lots of great conversation already with Albertus. Just remind you, please give this episode a thumbs up. Appreciate the 50-odd people tuning in to watch tonight. The first one of the new year. Hoping to get back into routine with it myself. And really sort of get back into it. So without any further ado, I'll get the next guest in. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Good evening, Scott. Are you all right?
Good evening, Des. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for joining me here tonight.
Thanks for having me on. No, it's an honour. I really appreciate it.
No, it's good, isn't it? And it's quite a good time to be a Forest fan, isn't it? Despite some of the tough start, it's starting to click a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely feels like we're after sort of like a very rocky and inconsistent start to the season where we've obviously been solid at home, but our away performances haven't been great. It does seem like there's a bit of an air of confidence now, especially going into this Southampton game. I think that's come at the right time for us, where we can start to string together some good performances like back to back without it just being one good game and then one bad game. I think a bit of consistency now will be good. And like you guys were just saying before with Albertus, it seems like Cooper's beginning to figure out who his sort of favourite 11 is, or maybe sort of 12, 13 players that he really likes to go with. And I think that's sort of something that he's had to sort of chisel down, I guess, from a big squad earlier on in the season. He's figuring out now who his preferred players are, who puts in the best performances. And it feels like we're moving in the right direction for sure.
I think that's important as well, isn't it? Because January's coming, and there's a lot of talk about more players coming in and players who can make an assault on the first 11 rather than filling the squad out like we seem to in the summer. It's almost now. It's important that Cooper knows roughly his first 11, so he can sort of pin down the spots that he really, really needs to improve on. Because let's be honest, Scott. And again, this is a point. It leads in nicely. Something else I wanted to make a point on this evening. Forest weren't perfect yesterday, and I thought 4 or 5 players were still missing. Went missing during the game. I don't think Forest offered much as a midfield unit in support of those attacking players. I thought we did well down the flanks.
Yeah.
And we got Morgan Gibbs-White sort of ticking things over. But I still want to see more from Foyer. People on the show will know what I think about him.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Mangala, but I had no issue. A guy behind me said, "I can't believe they're replacing Mangala with Colback." I thought it was a perfect replacement because playing off that left-hand side, we know Colback's left-footed. Just because he might be old, or deemed old for the Premier League. Yeah. But those players didn't give enough for me yesterday. Those players come in with big reputations, and I thought Yatesy played well again, almost on his own in there, and that's the worrying thing. I spoke about the balance in the midfield a lot, so it's a really important time sort of coming up, isn't it, for Forest to sort of get into that transfer market and really sort of find where they need these players. What do you think on that? What's your thoughts on sort of transfers and potential incomings?
Yeah, I think you're dead right. I think actually, just going back to your first point on yesterday, we were far from perfect, and that's obviously before that game. Any Forest fan, you offer them a point at home, you're going to take it against Chelsea. But on the basis of watching the play, they were there for the taking in that second half, and really after the goal goes in, I don't think we have that many clear-cut chances after the goal. We had a few before the goal leading up to it. Obviously, the Morgan Gibbs-White hitting the crossbar. And then I think after the goal, Awoniyi sort of like dragged the shot with his left foot straight at the keeper. The best chance in the second half probably came to Aubameyang right at the very end. When really, if he gets any sort of decent purchase on that header, Chelsea steal 3 points from us. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you watch that back, he's so close to getting, and he probably should get more on it. And he scores, and suddenly we're talking about having dropped 3 points rather than getting one. So I definitely agree. I think, yeah, there's far from perfect, and it's a Chelsea team that were there for the taking. They offered very little in that second half, and we had so much of the ball and played very well. We were positive, but not too many clear-cut chances, I don't think, after the goal especially. Yeah, in terms of January, I think definitely there's going to be some movement. I know there's talk about quite a few players who might be going out. I saw today Sam Surridge might be on his way out, which I don't know. That'd hurt to see that happen. But again, he obviously wants to play football, and he hasn't been given even a start for Forest. He's been sort of feeding off scraps, really, hasn't he? Been coming on for the last 10 minutes or whatnot. I think Burnley have been linked with him, so that'd be a huge blow. Obviously, Scarpa is a player we're all sort of keen to see play. I actually saw Brazilian flags at the game yesterday, and people wearing Brazilian shirts. So obviously, the effect he's had is sort of like seems to have sort of had a really positive effect on the fan base. Whether or not he'll play on Wednesday, I know you were just saying then. Who knows? Maybe he'll get some time off the bench. But I do still feel like they are signings that need to be made, and I think Cooper will have his eye on a few players who he might have sort of put forward that he wants us to bring in. And I know it became a bit of a running joke about how many signings we'd made in the summer, but you make as many as it takes until you get that squad that you want. And Cooper's been given the backing, and if it means bringing in 2 or 3 more in January, then so be it. If that's what he's got to do to find the squad that he wants, then I think you've got to give him what he needs.
Absolutely, and just popping a few comments in there about the Foyer thing. Harsh on Foyer, thought it was good yesterday. Paul says there that good to see Colbert get a run out. Agree with you. Still not getting what we should from Foyer. Mangala still growing. Absolutely. I've got no agenda against these guys, but I just on the point we're talking about here about transfers and players on the pitch, I just think we're still 3 or 4 players short. That's just my honesty of the situation. Don't get me wrong. I love the performance second half yesterday. You know, I love the fact we took the game. Someone says here, Colin, loved how we got into Chelsea second half and steady at the back. Again, that raises a point I wanted to talk about. So you'd be a perfect person. What do you think about the balance of Bolly and Worrell at the back, Scott? I thought Bolly played really well yesterday. I thought that was his best game. I actually thought he was man of the match. I thought he got in front of everything. He blocked everything. But one thing that surprises me with Bolly and Worrell is the way round they play on the pitch. Because I remember back when Worrell played with Figueiredo, 2 right footers, it was always Worrell who played left centre back. He always played left centre back, and the one thing about Bolly, despite the fact he played well, he got his foot in on everything. He looks very uncomfortable on his left hand side. So I'm quite surprised that they don't switch around. And on that note, I'm quite surprised that we're not seeing McKenna and Bolly, you know, because McKenna, we all know what McKenna is. You know, we all love Scott McKenna for what he does to the team, and I wouldn't say he's been frozen out because he's probably fighting as hard as anyone for his place, and he's probably in the forefront of Cooper's mind. But I think it'd be really interesting now with the upturn in Bolly's performance, perhaps to see McKenna reintroduced and Bolly play alongside him. I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts of that. Of course, a lot of Forest defensive woes or problems earlier in the season and even now come down to pace. You know, I just think it'd be interesting to hear what you think, mate, on that sort of situation.
Yeah, firstly, I completely agree on Bolly yesterday. He was fantastic. And there's been a lot of times at the City ground when our centre halves have had the ball and you are nervous. I still get it with Joe Worrell to an extent. Whereas Bolly, he just looks so comfortable on the ball. He can step forward. He can beat a man. It was only something very small, but in the first half, there was a scenario where he looked like he was being pressed and he sort of got between two players and got fouled. And it just relieved us so much pressure from us. And it was only sort of just inside our own half. He's just so comfortable on the ball. He's confident with the ball. The Worrell and McKenna one, I think, is a fair shout. I think neither of them have looked confident when they've played this season. I know Worrell obviously got dropped after, I think it was the Everton game, wasn't it, Cooper? That was when Cooper sort of dropped Joe Worrell, and he was looking shaky up until that point. I think the more playing time Worrell gets alongside Bolly, the better he'll be. I do think he had a good game, Joe Worrell, yesterday. He looked sturdy and looked better on the ball than he has in the past. But yeah, it's a difficult one with that. I think Bolly has definitely solidified that's sort of one of the partnership pairing. It's whether or not that second one, it's up for grabs. It really is. And yeah, like you said, you never know what goes on in training, but McKenna or Worrell, I think it's there to fight for. And then of course when Niakate comes back, I mean he was solid in the games we saw him play. So, and apparently he could be back come the end of the month now or something like that. So
I've heard that, and that would almost be a new signing in itself, wouldn't it? If he lives up to the sort of anticipation and expectation we put on him.
Yeah.
But no, some great conversation there, mate. Really nice to talk to you tonight. Got a few people waiting, so I appreciate you coming on. And what I'm going to finish on. What do you expect next 5 games? What's a good return?
Well, you look at the Southampton game, there's only a few away games. I mean, we should have beaten Everton at Goodison Park. That's one that got away from us. But from the remaining away games we have, this is one that we really have got a chance of winning. The tails will be up after that point against Chelsea. I really think we've got to look to take 3 points. We've got to be positive, play forward-thinking football in that Southampton game, get 3 points there. And then, yeah, I'm not. Who else do we play after the Southampton game? Who's our next run of games?
So we've got Southampton, Leicester. We've got Leeds within that. I think that's the fifth game of the lot.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Fulham,
mm-hmm.
Who are doing well, of course, and Bournemouth.
Yeah.
So it's Southampton, Leicester, Bournemouth, Leeds, Fulham, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, Southampton. Yeah, you look. I'd want us to go for 3 points there. Leicester are sliding a little bit. They're on a sort of bad run of form. I know James Maddison hasn't gone back into that side yet, so they'll obviously get better when he plays. But at the moment, that's a runnable team. We could do with getting some revenge for what they did to us at their place at the King Power Stadium. So that would be nice. So yeah, definitely some winnable games there.
I know, and lots of reason to be optimistic going into the new year. Are they staying up?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, easily. Yeah. We'll turn it around now, big time.
Okay, mate. Thanks for coming on, and hopefully speak again soon. Really appreciate your input.
Thank you so much, mate. Have a good day. Cheers.
Bye. That was Scott there. More great chat there. Really, really appreciate coming on. Not spoken before, so great to sort of talk to new people. If you fancy coming on, please do drop in. There's some guys waiting, but we'll try and get you on as quick as we can. Just a few more comments before we move forward. Legend HH, I'm a Chelsea fan, but got to admit that second half we played shambolic. Credits to Nottingham Forest for a point. Can you check my match review on the game yesterday? I'm one of the youngest football YouTube. I'll have a look. Hopefully some of the guys will as well. Go and check out Legend's channel. That'd be great if you can support him in what he's doing. Paul said, good to see Colbert get a run out. Agree with you. Still not. Oh, I've read that one. Rachel says, hello there. I can't wait for Scarpa to play for Nottingham Forest. I want to see what he can do. Don't we all? We want him to be an absolute revelation. Here's one that I thought might come up before too long. Paul, what did you think about the ref yesterday? As rubbish as the rest of them. They're all shocking. So inept. It's one of my real bugbears refereeing. They are so bad, and now they rely on a system that don't even work as well. So I could go on all night. Rubbish. Can sum it up in one word. Funky scenario, new manager? I don't think so. Rebel City Red, I think the ref came on, the Chelsea coach. There was that Wikipedia Dore mentioned earlier in the show where they said he was a Chelsea fan, but I'd imagine a Forest fan wrote that after the game. Paul said, pleased to see Joe Worrell back and come to terms with the Premier League. Bolly, like Aurora, has been a revelation in the last few games. Saw a comment on a previous show at Dore where they spoke about Aurora. Somebody said Aurora and Chiarte had been our best players of the season. And I'd mentioned that they were the ones with Premier League experience. That's what I feel we should be looking for in January, Premier League experience. Because, again, you can throw Bolly into that now and you can see a real sort of you can see where the players who are performing, where they've done it before. Do you know that they've done it before? Do you know, and these guys, Bolly, Aurora, Chiarte, they seem to be the one that the players we're getting more from. I touched on other players who've got big reputations, obviously got some ability, but you know these guys are doing it. Harold Larwood said ref inspired the crowd, probably to some degree. It was that bad. Let's just have a look. One or two more before we. James says win home games, take some points away. No better chance than Wednesday night, is there? And Scott's just left a comment there. Thanks so much for having me. I reviewed yesterday's game on my channel. If anyone wants to check it out. Apologies for not giving that a shout out, Scott. Do check out Scott Talks Football. You know, it's great to have different people on and different opinions, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? So check out what he's doing. Really, really appreciate you coming on. Before I get Kieran in, I'll just say, please do give this episode a like. There's 50-ish people watching, so really, really appreciate the support as well. You know, it's fantastic. I know there's lots of Forest content out there, lots to watch, lots to check in on, but we're just doing our best to keep it positive, keep it enthusiastic, and keep believing that we can do it. And I definitely believe that, and I'm sure this guy does too. Good evening, Kieran. Are you all right?
Evening, Des. Yeah, nice to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
What is it on your mind tonight then? What have you got to say about Forest at the moment?
Like you said, we weren't far from perfect yesterday. That first half was painful to watch. Just don't know why we were set up how it was. Going into half time, we look loads better just in that second half. Hopefully we can see that more consistency out of the team. But hopefully we do, especially with the players. Hopefully will make a difference when they do come in. Apparently we're after a number 6, a striker and a centre off, which is exactly what we need, really.
I totally agree. You know, I've been saying for weeks now, the balance in midfield is all wrong. Whilst those players are good, you know, I think the 3 that are playing at the moment, any 2 could play with a number 6. And I think it's important. We know the problems we've had at the back, you know, and we know the number 9 issue. Where do you stand on the Tyro and number 9, and how do you think he played yesterday?
Oh, yeah, it's his best game in the Forest shirt by far. Hopefully we can see more from that. I think at times when Cooper's not started him, I don't think he believed in him as much. But just showing from yesterday, that's what you can do. Like, he's not the finished product, like you said earlier on. I think he doesn't score enough, but you can also say he doesn't get much support from the midfielders at all. Like, the midfield is very unbalanced. Like, Freuler at Old Trafford was rubbish. And I thought he did okay yesterday. It took him a while to get into the game. But a number 6 is a must. And hopefully push Mangala forward, Yates forward, Freuler forward when he gets his chance. So I don't think Freuler is a defensive midfielder for me. And that's definitely a must. But a striker is definitely a must to support Taiwo.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you're talking about midfield and what I've said previously, you know, it's so important to get that balance right to help players who are still progressing like Awoniyi, you know, to get the ball to him quicker, to give him that half a second extra, you know, so he's got that half a yard of space to do something to get it under control. Because we know it's not sticking, but it's easy when it's coming, when you spread out across the pitch and the ball's coming into you and you're waiting for people.
Absolutely, yeah.
In the Premier League, players are going to be on you before you know it, you know. And I think that balance in midfield is so crucial. I know, and I heard a guy behind me yesterday say, I can't believe we're playing with 3 defensive midfielders. And I just thought to myself, none of them are defensive midfielders. We're playing with 3 number 8s. You know,
that's exactly what I think. Like, Freud is a number 8. Mangala is not a defensive midfielder. You see him playing there at times. It doesn't suit him. Look how good Mangala is on the half turn. He's fantastic. He has to be in that number 8. Same with Yates. Like, he's playing that Henderson role. Like, the defensive midfielder, he doesn't suit Yates at all. Because he's not one of the players on the half turn where he's going to receive the ball and, I don't know, put it across the pitch. That's not what Yates' job is. Like, he's good at where he's been playing at the minute, and he's been fantastic. This number 6 is so important that we can get in this window.
No, absolutely, and I've been going on about that. I keep saying we need to unearth a Kante like Leicester did, and people shout me down, but they find him from somewhere. You know, he wasn't playing at a top team when they got him. I'd love us to get that player who just holds it all together in there. You know, and let some players go and do their thing. Let's Mangala or Foyer get up the pitch. Because I can only imagine what a player Foyer could be. Do you know, if he's almost the player sort of getting over the halfway line, getting the ball into Gibbs White, getting the ball into Tyro, you know, perhaps popping up with a shot and a goal of his own. That's what we see for Switzerland, isn't it? So I think that was important. Looking at sort of the other positions you mentioned, you seem to have highlighted areas where you feel we need. I think everybody kind of knows those positions. Centre back, striker, any names sort of spring to mind? Anybody you think we could possibly grab in the window?
It's hard with the centre half. We don't know how much Forest are going to spend on a centre half. Well, Niakate coming back soon is going to be massive for us. I think we have definitely missed him this season. We've never really had much communication when he was going to come back, but it's nice to hear today that he's going to come back at the end of the month. But still, we still need another centre half just to give that competition. Because the thing with Cook and McKenna, they were good like in some games, but some games they got destroyed by pace because they're not the quickest, are they? Like McKenna, we know what we're going to get from McKenna. You're going to get 100%, but with McKenna, he's got to play with someone that's quick with him for him to actually get a start for Forest. We just need someone that's agile enough to slot into this starting 11 at the moment. But with striker-wise, Danny Ings, like you've said, I think he'd be brilliant. But does Cooper want him? We don't know, really, do we?
No, and it's hard, isn't it? I've asked you a question there that Dore asked me on the last episode, and it's really hard to throw names in there because you've got to try and be realistic, you know, and sort of pragmatic on these things. You know, you've got to understand where Forest are at, who might want to come, how they fit in, and it's a really tough question. And I guess I'm just fishing like Dore was last time for names because it's really, really hard at the moment. I keep saying Premier League experience, but Premier League players don't necessarily spring to mind. You know, they might be in other teams. They might appear to be struggling in other teams. A bit like Aurora, a bit like Chiarte, you know, probably surplus to requirements. You know, we might pick 1 or 2 players up from the big clubs, you know, who are no longer playing. I think it's going to be really interesting, especially if they're talking about these signings. I've heard 1 or 2 things about listening to the likes of Darren Fletcher on other podcasts. You know, he's saying that Steve Cooper's got a great reputation. Players are still wanting to sign, wanting to.
Yeah, I saw an article the other day. That's brilliant.
And I think that's really interesting. So we might be pleasantly surprised again. Hopefully not. Hopefully with somebody we know and we've got a bit more faith in. You know, because we all had blind faith in some of these signings. And let's be honest, I said it last time before this point against Chelsea. I said it on the last show. We're not a great Premier League team as it stands because the league position tells us that. I think we've come so far, especially last year. You know, we come on leaps and bounds, and we have to realise that. We have to remember where we were 12 months ago, and it has been a hard process, and everybody's learning. But there comes a point when if you want to stay here, you know, Mr. Marinakis stood on that balcony in the Market Square and said, we've got to rewrite history now. There's got to come a point where we start doing it, you know, not talking about it. And a result against Chelsea is a sound building block. But we've got to go and back that up, and then perhaps back it up with some real thought out, talented signings. Because you know, I know you're on for Twitter and Simon Jordan and things like that, and disagreeing and agreeing. It's one of those, isn't it, where lots of people said something and we didn't want to believe it, but to some degree, they're right, because all they've done is filled out a squad here, and I think the team that got promoted last season, we all know about the loans and what happened. You know, it deserved a bit more respect. You know, because some of them have not been exactly what we needed, and I think we'd have got better. You look at Surridge, you know,
I feel sorry for Surridge.
I do to some degree, you know, but because I think he's the best number 9 option we've got,
the best finisher at the club, 100%.
But I don't think he's necessarily going to be the guy to keep us in the Premier League. No. You know, and that's just my personal opinion.
I agree with you.
I love the guy. I love his endeavour and what he puts in. Like I say, I think he's the best number 9. I'd play him if people are talking about Tyro playing as number 9. I think the ball's going to stick a bit more, you know, with Surridge, and when he does get an opportunity, he's going to strike it well. So that gives us an option. But again, we touched on Ings. I just think it's so important to get this window right.
Oh yeah, 100%. Hopefully, people will want to play for Cooper and just hit the ground running. Look what Newcastle did last season. Bring in Bruno. What a player he's been. Like, he came from Europe. He didn't necessarily have Premiership experience, but he had the class to keep him up. And let's hope we can get players that are going to keep us up as well with a bit of class.
Okie dokie, mate. I really appreciate you coming on. You know, it's great to have you, Kieran. Always appreciate the support. You know, I'm going to crack on. Have a good New Year. I'm sure we'll catch up soon on All Things Forest. So thanks for joining us.
See you soon, Des.
Cheers, mate. Bye. That was Kieran. He's been on before. Really, really appreciate him coming on. You know, having his sound things. It's great to hear from him. Got a couple of comments to get through. Ethan says, Happy New Year, guys. Absolutely. Do you know, it started well, isn't it? Happy New Year, Ethan. You know, we can be nice to each other at the end of the day. We don't always have to be at loggerheads. He also says, Mangali 84, classic midfield for a centre-half. Why not someone like Michael Keane from Everton? I know that name's been spoken about. You know, I've heard it spoken about right from the summer. I heard that they were linked with him. Gets a bit of objection from people around me, but, you know, I probably think he's better than what we've got. And that's key, isn't it? It's always about signing players who can add to what you've got, not just journeymen, people who are going to... We've had too many of them. We've had our fingers burnt with it. So it's really, really important to get the right players. Paul says, I noticed Keenan Davis went off in the Watford game with a hamstring injury today. You know, for all the crowing I do about Keenan Davis, everybody knows on here I like him. I think he would have been a good option. He would have cost a lot of money, but we would have got more from him. And then on the counter side of that, everyone tells me he's injury prone. Somebody actually said to me this evening, he's had a really good game today, and then I saw he went off injured with an hamstring. So that's the problem you get there. But again, I'd still take a chance on him, you know, given the right price. And people tell me to move on. But of all those loan signings, I think he was the one that made a difference. I've got the man himself, Kevin Campbell, in. Good evening, Des. Hope you're well. And great to see Forest, especially second half versus Chelsea. Home form will count big time. And this is another... I'm glad you mentioned that, Kev. Happy New Year. You know, keep that positivity going. We're all fighting for the same cause at the end of the day. But I'm glad you mentioned the home form because, you know, there's been a lot said about the away form and the Man United performance last week and the thrashings we got earlier in the season. Again, a point I picked up from Darren Fletcher on something he does, you know, just sort of, he was just saying how tough it is for any team to win away in the Premier League. And that proved it for Chelsea yesterday. Apart from the top 4, the top 6, who actually goes away and wins? You know, it always comes as a bit of a shock when it happens. Fulham get a lot of good results at home. You know, it's not an easy place to go. Even Everton at times, you know, picking up points, you know, just to keep them above. Villa are the prime example, aren't they? They're really good at home and really poor away. And there's lots of picking up away points in the Premier League is so tough. So points yesterday, whilst on the balance of play, we could have took all three. Over the two halves. I think a point was a fair result. It could almost be a bonus point at the end as well, because everyone expected Chelsea to be up there, and if we can win those winnables, control the controllables, as they say, it could be a real chance for us to sort of. It's been, is it 5 games now unbeaten at home, and we've got Leicester next. Come through that one, come through a game against Wolves in the cup, and all of a sudden that confidence starts going, and that is massive. Don't underestimate confidence within football. As soon as players start believing in themselves, moving the ball around a bit quicker, the talented players again, if it starts happening with the likes of Mangala and Foy getting it into a one-year, it creates that space itself. So I think there's a lot more to come, and I'm feeling really confident. 51 viewers in, really appreciate that. It's the first one back in the new year. Lots to be positive about. Lots of people tuning in. I know, like I keep saying, there's lots to view all over YouTube and everywhere else. So I appreciate those tuning in here. If you would give a thumbs up to this episode, subscribe to DoreOnTour, that'd be amazing. Let's get the guy and all his hard work to 11,000. He'll keep doing what he does, regardless of what anybody else is doing. So he's got my full backing. Hopefully he's got your full backing as well. So do get behind him. Do give a thumbs up, and also get behind Do Daily. Mine's my YouTube channel is on a lot smaller scale, about something completely different, but I'd love you to get behind that and give that subscribe too. Getting into the next guest, he's been waiting really patiently. Half the night it seems. He's popped in and out. Good evening, Mark. Are you okay?
Hello, Des. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah.
Happy New Year
to you. And to you. To you.
What is it on your mind about Forest today?
Yeah, I'm very upbeat, mate. I'm very positive, like a lot of us. I mean, I went to the Man United game. I had to sit with the enemy, unfortunately. So I listened to a lot of what they had to say. They didn't really have to say anything good about us, really. It was all about them just getting over the line and brushing us away, which unfortunately was what it was, wasn't it? Really, it was I think we was a bit sort of on the night. I thought we was a bit. We rolled over a little bit and had our bellies tickled. I know you was at the game. It was a bit unfortunate. I think we had a few moments, but I felt the funny thing is, right, these two games, the Chelsea game, coming back after the World Cup, I was at Blackburn as well. But the Blackburn game was, I thought I'd be nice to just to bed us in, to get us going again. But then we always knew these two Premier games, Man United away, Chelsea at home, were going to be really tough. I'm going to ask different questions, hard questions again, especially Man United. And obviously what I felt with the Manchester United game was we had a little bit too much respect for them. It was almost like some of them players, especially some of the lads that were, our young lads coming through, like Brennan, Yatesy a little bit, and Worrell, had a little bit too much respect for them lads. They would have been watching them. Well, Brennan was obviously there, but they would have been watching them in a World Cup. And it was like, oh yeah, we was watching the World Cup. I mean, look, I don't want to make it sound like they're unprofessional or they can't deal with that, but it just felt a little bit like that. Whereas obviously yesterday, I wasn't at the game. Watched it on telly. I felt with Chelsea, I think first half we were a little bit, Cooper had it bang on right. Really, we do surrender possession. We do let them come onto us because we're quick up front, and we can. And if we execute what he wants us to execute, and we were a bit passive, as the commentators were saying as well. But second half, I think we was at them a little bit more. We got stuck into them from the second half, a little bit like the Man United game for the first 5 minutes of that game, and we showed them no respect. And I think we gained respect from Chelsea, and we gained respect from the pundits and all the rest of it because, and it was positive to see. And it was, and we go, as you say, we go into this game on Wednesday. That game's huge. We needed to get at least something out of that game yesterday to go us into that. And I think Southampton are under pressure. And that the way we play will favour us as long as we don't give any free kicks outside the box. Because that the fella they've got there who can do damage.
Absolutely, I agree on all those points about the sort of passive approach towards games, and that first half yesterday, I really wasn't happy at half time. I thought this the and you hit on a right point there about earning respect almost. I think the battle between Awoniyi and Kabbalah, is that how you say it?
Kabbalah, yeah.
Because for the first two touches of the game, Kabbalah just kicked Awoniyi. He just kicked him. He had no interest in defending him. He thought, I've got this guy in my back pocket. He's not going anywhere. And then they realised it was second half. When they come out, they realised and watch it. I've mentioned Silva a couple of times, but the other guys was at 6s and 7s. Do you know that Cucurella? He looked like the worst signing I'd ever seen for them. And I think that was more to do with Forest and determination. It almost, do you know what it felt like to me, Mark? Was it almost felt like there'd been a few teacups thrown around at half time?
Oh, yeah. Listen, we're under no estimations with, Cooper's done a fantastic job again. He's doing a great job again. With what he's got to work with again, he is, and I've said it many times, on different podcasts. We've all got faith in him. We're singing about him all the time, home and away. We don't need anything else. We're waiting so long to get a decent manager, and the guy knows what he's doing. He's in control. He knows what he's doing. He's got a set way of playing. I don't think he's ignorant. If we remember, we started this season with 5 at the back. It wasn't working, so we had to go 4-3-3. And the only concern I've got really is, I think, like you say, you're dead right what you said about midfield players tonight. There's an unbalance there. We need to sort that out. As good a players they are, they're doing the best they can. But I think the trouble we've got up front, because we play with that 4-3-3, we have to defend from the front. And when we surrender possession, we have to defend from the front. I think when you plays and it puts in a good shift. I don't think it suits Brennan too much, but Brennan's a work in progress. He's a young lad. He's got hammering all season from the Forest fans. They're expecting too much out of him. He's 21 years of age, right? He's a brilliant footballer that has come a long way in a short time, and we need to be patient with him because all of this experience, I think personally, that Brennan really has been bedded in too quickly this season. I think he would have been better as an impact sub this season with somebody who's established in that area of the pitch. Maybe Dennis was the person that we was hoping was going to be the established Premier League player that was going to play on that side, that was going to but I don't even think Dennis. I mean, we saw what Dennis done against Man United. I mean, he come back to defend and he gave them the ball and started an attack from him just outside the 18-yard box, which Fred scored. So I don't even know if he's good at that. But Awoniyi does a great job. Surridge, when he comes on, he will defend from the front. He does a great job. And Morgan Gibbs-White is a terrier. We see what he does with the ball, but look what he does when he hasn't got the ball. I mean, he works so hard, that lad. I mean, what a brilliant signing. What a brilliant signing Gibbs-White has been. Brilliant.
Well, exactly, and I think you make a great point about those players, and you look at Brennan Johnson 18 months ago, he was at Lincoln.
Yes.
And he's had the season of his life, and you've got to sort of bear that in mind. Again, I still think I always want a Forest team with Brennan Johnson in. I don't care where it is. I want him in the team because if Brennan Johnson's not in it, I panic a little bit. How are we gonna hit teams on the break? I know we might not always have the end product this season. I know at times he might make the wrong decision. One of them we've already spoke about was questioned yesterday. But you want that player to take the ball, especially with the imbalance in midfield. You want that player to take the ball from one end to the other in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
You need that.
That was unfair.
Pardon?
Sorry, Des. I think that was unfair though, because like when he got that great ball played down the side for him, and he was in on goal, and everyone was shouting him to get across. Thiago Silva was brilliant with what he done there because he was aware of what was behind him, and he cut that pass off. And Brennan has got a split second to make a choice. I think he's done the right thing there to take the shot on. But Brennan has to work on his finishing. He's got to be more clinical. He's got to be more clinical. Because I went to the Blackburn game and he had a few chances there, and he's away and he's in on goal. And we all know, all right, it's Blackburn, and we had loads of chances against Blackburn. We got 4, we could have had 8 or 9, but you're not going to get that in the Premier League. So when you get that one chance or 2 chances, one of them's got to go in. And again, I'm not being harsh to him. He's a work in progress. He's a work in progress, but that's what he's got to add to his game. He's got to be ruthless and clinical, and that's when he will step to the next level.
But they become easy targets, don't they? And in a sort of along the same lines. But I want to kind of get this point in as well. Do you know, I won you yesterday. You touched on Morgan Gibbs-White. Do you know if Morgan Gibbs-White was not the man of the match on that pitch? When you think about it, it's baffling. But we come to expect it of players. Do you know, Gibbs-White was at the heart of everything.
Yeah.
And you say, what a player. Do you know? Yeah, he is a terrier, but he was at the heart of every Forest attack.
Yeah.
Who put Brennan Johnson away in the first half? Who's rattled one off the crossbar when he's leaning back and somehow he gets his head over it and, almost creates a goal from it? And I think it's so important not to sort of overlook some of this sometimes, because we get complacent with our own grown players. We all want Foyer and Mangala and Loddy to be world beaters, but they're not. Let's not sort of beat ourselves up about our own grown players when they're the ones who've still got so much potential.
Oh yeah.
So much to come from.
Oh
and
yeah.
I think that's it, really, really important, mate. And I think it's a point you make there about Brennan. And I probably get I probably get accused of sticking up for him too much. So it's great to hear from someone else's point of view that he's such a raw talent who could change a game.
He's a raw talent. He is.
And there wasn't teams looking at him for no reason. Put him in a team who's a bit more sort of has adapted a little bit more to the Premier League, or is part of what the Premier League is at the moment. Then he's a real asset.
I just think there's got to be some balance.
Do you know what?
There's got to be some balance.
Absolutely, he reminds me a little bit. With his directness, and I know he's not the same player before anyone jumps down my throat, but he reminds me a little bit of Marcus Rashford.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
In the way, and if he could just get that shooting right, that last minute decision making, Rashford seems to be a bit of a master at it again. All of a sudden, everything's coming off. And it was like Johnson last year. He was direct. He was running in straight lines at defenders. But defenders don't like that. And when you make the right choice between a pass or a shot, it's all sort of fantastic. Amazing. And that's what Rashford's doing. But there's a fine line, isn't there? Because Rashford has been badly out of form for over a season. And again, I think we kind of see a bit of some similarities. And I think it's important, especially with it being Brennan Johnson, somebody who's come through the academy, somebody we know who's got talent, somebody who we know has got a lot more to come, just to stick with him. Again, he's always going to be a confidence player.
Get off his back. Let's give him a chance. We all got to get off his back. Give him a chance. Just see it for what it is. He's a young kid learning the game. How good is he going to be with the experience? If we stay in the Premier League, how good is he going to be next season and the season after that? This experience for him is going to bring him on. He's always learning. He's come such a long way in 2 seasons. He's going to be. It might sound like I'm criticising him a little bit. I'm not really criticising. I'm just saying, I want him to be. We all want him to be the best he can be, especially for us. And he doesn't go anywhere. But don't expect too much too soon. Don't expect too much from him too soon. But we need to. But I just think that, especially when we play with Lingard, I don't think Lingard wants to defend too much from the front as well. So when we play with them, I think the balance is better when we've got Jono, Gibbs-White and Awonyi. Just if we've got to do that, if we've got to defend from the front, it's just the balance is just that's what I think there. But look, we know we're not we know we need to make additions. We know we need to improve in certain areas. But at the moment, at this point in time, I think we've done all right. Yeah, we've had some disappointing games. We've done all right, I tell you.
Absolutely. And there's a couple of comments coming in about Brennan.
Jem says, John, on the pitch makes oppositions always have one eye on their back door. That's exactly the point I was making before. You've got to be conscious that it's there. Mark says, I'd like to see Brennan work on putting some power behind his shots more often, as I feel like he tries to place it every time. But that's just a minor thing. He'll be a star. And again, it's just that split decision making, isn't it? I feel yesterday's one, like you say, I thought that was unfair because I thought he had to shoot.
Yeah, I did.
Kevin Campbell, again, and this guy should know, please let Brennan develop because now he's working at the highest level. It takes time. You know, the kid's a young lad, and when you look at his build and his frame, you know, it's a physical game in the Premier League. It's going to take some adapting to. I'm not using that as an excuse, but you're going to get barged about when he fills out a bit, you know, when he's used to getting knocked around and he's used to the pace of the opposition. In the Championship, in League One, he's been the fastest player there. You know, I wouldn't say it's been easy for him because that's doing him a disservice to his talent, but he's been a cut above. You know, how do you distinguish between a cut above and not being good enough for the Premier League? Where are they based? Do you know what I mean?
I think he's definitely one of the quickest players running with the ball. I mean, there's not many players that can run as quick as he can with the ball. And he plays on the shoulder, and he's always, like you say, he's always got defenders looking over his shoulder, and they don't. Let's face it, Premiership defenders don't know a lot about him. They'd have seen a little bit. They might not have taken a lot of notice, but you know, they're going to be noticing a lot more now. You know.
Absolutely. Lots to talk about, Brandon. I think it's important. I think it's a really important issue because I think when this guy clicks, you know, when Forest click as a team and serve him a little bit more as well, not just him serving the team. I think we've got one hell of a player and one hell of an asset, you know, to go along with Morgan Gibbs-White, a returning to form Jesse, potentially a star in the making in Scarpa. You know, you could have some real options and perhaps one or two additions in the window, you know, who are going to fight for those places, like we keep saying, rather than fill out the squad. You could have some real options up there, and it could be just a matter of time before we really do start climbing the league. But I think that's great conversation, mate. I really appreciate you coming on. We've discussed Brennan a lot there and not much else, but great conversation nonetheless. Appreciate you coming on.
Big shout out for Yatesy as well. I thought he was fantastic yesterday, and he's been fantastic. He's another one who's had his knockers as well. And do you know what? He's rising to the challenge. And you know, Mason Mount knows about him now as well because Mason Mount didn't do bugger all yesterday.
Well, absolutely, and he's another one I've backed in recent weeks. I keep saying he's playing teams on his own. I firmly believe he's playing them on his own because he's not got much support in there in whichever role that's required from a midfielder. So again, it's easy to get at these players, isn't it? It's easy to get complacent because you've seen this or you've seen that, you know. But these guys are the ones who bleed it, you know, who want it, and it's important to them. So yeah, it's a good point. But like I say, I appreciate you coming on. You know,
no worries.
Really, it's good to speak to you again, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we'll catch up again.
Cheers, Mark.
Take it easy, mate.
Cheers. Great chat there about Brennan, one of our own. We're quick to jump on his back sometimes, aren't we? But it's important to remember the role he does play in the team and how he could get some support and what he's actually doing. You know, he takes game from back to front sometimes. He takes some of the pressure off the defence. You know, and that's important when we're under the cosh like we were in the first half yesterday. Those couple of opportunities where he got to run. There was one through the middle and one down the line. You know, it just helps us sort of gain a bit of momentum, get a bit of sort of breathing space, catch a breath, whatever. You know, those moments are important in games as well. So really appreciate Mark coming on. Before I get the last guest in this evening, who has been waiting really patiently, just going to reel off these last few comments. Just on the Brennan thing, Jem says he's definitely good enough for the Premier League, no doubt. Paul said too many slagging him off on Forest groups on Facebook. Unfortunately, seems to be one of those, doesn't it? You know. Simon says, I hope we stay in the Premiership because if we don't, we could lose Jono. Again, be careful what you wish for sometimes. You know, with this guy. I think there'll be plenty of suitors if he became available, if Forest got relegated, and I've no idea, but I'd imagine there might be something in there to say he could leave. Yatesy is magic on and off the pitch, like they tried to wind him up. They did try and wind him up. I saw Man United also. He got into sort of Eriksen's face and Casemiro. He got into them. I thought this guy's becoming a player. I'm getting to the opinion with Yates that people keep saying he's not technically gifted. I think that's rubbish. I think he does what other players should be doing. You know, some of the passes that he completes, if other players do them in a suave, smoother way, they get called fantastic. James says Foy looked after Mount last night. Simon says it's a shame Southgate is not watching Yatesy. This is a claim. Hopefully he's right. I'm starting to believe it now. I'm starting to believe it's really happening. I think 2023 is going to be a good one, and I'm in the same camp as KC. We're staying up. And Jem says, KC saying we're staying up, that would do for me. Absolutely. That's the most important thing, isn't it? Before I get Chris in, thanks to everybody who's tuning in. Don't forget, give this episode a thumbs up. Show me some love. Show Dore some love. Get him up to 11K if you've not subscribed. You know, and just come on, have you say what you got. Keep the comments coming. Good evening, Chris. Just come on, have you say what you got. Keep the comments coming. Good evening, Chris.
Hey, Do Daily. Happy New Year.
There's a bit of an echo there, Chris.
Happy New Year. Yeah, it's good to be. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you better now. Yeah, I think the echo's disappeared.
Daily, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay.
You pay your internet bill?
Don't start with Dore's comments.
Can you hear me?
You're very broken up, Chris. Do you want to try logging out and logging back in again?
Yeah,
and
something's
I'll
not right.
Around.
Hold on.
Just give Chris a second there to try and sort his internet issues out. He seems to think it's this end, but hopefully everybody can hear me. Just a few more comments. Nice one, Kev. Eve says, I love Ryan Yates. I've rated him ever since we played West Brom in February 2019, and he scored 2 goals. And a message from a true gooner. Hope you stay up from a gooner. I hope we stay up, but I hope we don't have to play your team at the moment because they're absolutely on fire, aren't they? And when we went there, it wasn't very pleasant. But no, good luck to them in their pursuit against Man City. But yeah, I'll give Chris a few moments to try and sort his issues out. Mark just commented there, come on, you Reds. There's been lots to be positive about tonight, hasn't there? Lots from that performance yesterday that makes you start believing. We know in football, we know football's fickle. We know it only takes a defeat, you know, and obviously everybody's pinning the ropes on this Southampton game. And if it don't quite go well, you know, some fans will be on the case again. We can't do too much about that, but we can try and pick the bones out of it the best they can. Be positive about it. Find what the reasons are. Do you know, I'm not positive about every situation. Every player in the team, as it's shown throughout. I think there's mass improvements needed, but we can see it coming, and that's the point, isn't it? I think what Kev says there about staying up, you know, and what people are seeing is a lot more positive than what it was 6 weeks before the break. I was going to say 6 weeks ago, but that was the start of the World Cup, wasn't it? 6 weeks before the break. And in reality, you know, we're talking about a busy Christmas period and coming through these games. We'd still be mid-November in a normal season without a World Cup. So being in and around the fight, being in the fight to stay up, not cut adrift after... is it 16 games, 17 games? Do you know, we're there or thereabouts. A win on Wednesday could take us sort of 2-3 places above, and you're starting to give yourself a little bit of space. Of course, you can get dragged back in. Of course, it can be it can be a slippery slope at times, just when you think you've made it. But we can only do what we can do, can't we? And if we get 1 or 2 players in, personally, I think we can sort of really start taking games to the opposition, getting a stranglehold on them. One thing that concerns me slightly, so whilst I am being positive, one thing that worries me going into the Southampton game, I said this to a friend coming out yesterday, is we've now got to go from sort of almost being very wary of what everyone else is doing. I won't say defensive, because I don't think we've necessarily been defensive, but being wary and having to be defensive at times, if we're completely honest, to almost being the aggressor. We've got to find a way now to be the aggressor. Everyone's been talking about the high press and this and how we take the game to the opposition. This is what we got from Cooper last year. Hopefully they can almost slip back into that kind of frame of mind. They started it earlier in the season and it didn't work, did it? We was conceding goals. We was getting it on the break and kind of making it a bit too easy for teams. But when it comes to Southampton, we've perhaps got to, like I say, flip that game. And I don't think that's going to be easy. They've been playing in a way for such a period of time now. So I'm just hoping with the confidence that's building, the result from Saturday, players becoming a bit more solid in their performances, they can do that. They can switch it round. We can get that win and we can get out the relegation zone. That is going to be massive. If it happens this week, fantastic. If it happens on the last day of the season, we'll take it. But whenever it happens, it's going to be a massive sort of pat on the back, sort of G up for the players and make them believe that they can really, really pull off the escape. We're not in desperate measures yet, but it looked like it earlier in the season. It looked tough. It looked really, really tough. And I just feel now we've got a real, real big chance. Just to sort of, Chris has just popped back in. I'll try and get him on very shortly, but just a few comments. So Chris says on just home games, we're 12th in the league. Think that's positive? Absolutely. It's got to be some kind of positive, hasn't it? We've got to find points somewhere because it puts a lot of pressure on the home games. But again, having spoken about the run we're coming up against, we'd like to see something come out of those. On our away games, got to keep in mind that we've been away to Man City, Newcastle, Arsenal and Man United. Away games will get easier. There's that too, isn't there? Someone will always throw Leicester at us, and Everton and blah, blah, blah. But there's 4 games here where if we was realistic at the start of the season, we'd say we won't get nothing. Nobody's going to throw points away. Nobody's going to say, forget that, but you've got to be realistic as well. And those teams will win most of their own games. So why would Forest go there and necessarily take big points from them? Carmen said, solid second half performance. Take that form to Southampton and we'll be firing. Keep up the great work on Do Daily as well, Paul. Thank you. Really, really appreciate that kind of support. Chris says, Southampton have the worst record in the league. Again, it's a good point, but we can't be complacent going into it either, can we? Sorry, I just read that one. Jem, on the back of that comment, said, not bad teams in the Premier. Southampton won't roll over. I feel many underestimate them. They will fancy it. Got some decent players, haven't they? The one thing we don't want to be doing at Southampton is giving away free kicks on the edge of the box. That's going to be sort of suicidal in many ways, because we know how good Ward-Prowse is. And in the midfield, I've said it in the games against Crystal Palace and Liverpool. If you win the midfield in the Premier League, you win the match. Where Southampton have got some pretty good talent is in midfield, and we've got to keep a control of Ward-Prowse, make sure we don't give away free kicks, because anything sloppy, he's going to stick it in the back of the net. I think I saw something yesterday. He scored the same amount of free kicks in the Premier League as David Beckham, and that it's the highest, 17, I think it was. I might be wrong, don't quote me on that, but it's just something to bear in mind that we've got to be on a game regardless of how lesser the opponents might feel. Mark says, Cooper has a few methods of how to play. He's the man. Totally agree with Mark. I love Cooper. I think people know that. So hopefully we can pull this one off. let's have a go with Chris again. Good evening, Chris. Are you all right?
Hey, I'm well. Apologies, Daly, and to my godfather. I call Dore the Godfather because he's the king of all media. I apologize for
No worries. Don't worry about it.
technical difficulties. Second time in a row. I might not see first team action again if this keeps up.
You are our second transatlantic guest of the evening, transatlantic even. Guest of the evening. So a few glitches. I believe there was a few early on when I was talking to Albertus. So don't worry about it too much, Chris.
Yeah, we're the North American bookends for today's show.
Absolutely, and very worthy ones at that. What's your thoughts on Forest at the moment?
One thing I'm kind of ponying on Mark's comments about Cooper. I was thinking about this as the show was going on. I'm as impressed with what he's accomplished this year as I was with his master class last year, getting us up. Because and I'm glad the fans are totally behind Cooper, as they should be, because this thing was a mess. I mean, like we had to gut the entire team. We recruited in hindsight, kind of pell-mell. We put a lot of faith in it, but now with hindsight, there wasn't as much thought that went into the player recruitment as we first thought. But what he's accomplished to keep us where we are right now with a fighting chance, I think if we had changed coaches or had a different coach, we'd be in deep shit. I'm not sure I can say that, but
absolutely, you can. It's gone 9 o'clock. Yeah.
So I have to just again emphasize that the Cooper is the man. I'm glad the owner still is behind him. I think he should be, because given enough time. And my only concern is that we'll run out of runway, Des. I said in the comments earlier that we're making progress, albeit glacially. I think if the season were 60 games long, we'd be no problem. But we squandered a lot early on, so we don't have much margin to play with here. So to echo the other guys who've been on the show tonight, this next batch of games is really going to be critical. It seems every game and batch of games is critical in the Premier League, but we're going to get a test now against teams that, quote unquote, we should beat. And we can see if this progress is legit. We're not getting murdered away like Man United. I think you raised a good point. There was a lot of good things to take out of that. It wasn't a shit show like Man City or Arsenal was. But here we really have a litmus test against these teams coming up over the next few weeks.
But I think you make a great point, Chris, because one thing I've said over the last few months, is people who question Cooper, people who bizarrely question Cooper, in my opinion, or unjustifiably question Cooper, did they not watch Forest last season? Did they not see where this guy took them from to where he took them to? So he's done that, and I'm not saying that gives him a free pass for life.
Right.
But in the immediate season afterwards, when we're jumping up a massive step, somewhere we've not been for 23 years, we know the transfers have been a mess. I think we're all of that opinion now. We all know who's good enough and who's not good enough and who could be improved upon and who Cooper likes, who he fancies, who he doesn't. It's showing in the selection. So who in the right mind, in my opinion, supports a guy like they did last season to the best day of our lives as a Forest fan for a lot of us, at Wembley in May, to start a season badly and then think, say we sacked him, who would, or another team would start similar and come in for Cooper, would have been devastated. So we're in a bad position. Who would we want to dig us out of this hole? Especially the season after. Like I said before there, 4 years down the line, if nothing's happening and we're just meandering around league to league, bouncing up and down, you probably need somebody to take you forward.
Right.
But in the space of 4 or 5 months, why is this guy not the guy to take you forward? In my opinion, if Forest get relegated, I would keep Steve Cooper. Because who's the best manager for the Championship in that case? People are saying he's not a Premier League manager. Well, if he's not a Premier League manager, if people concede that, you've got to concede that Forest aren't a Premier League team. And the likelihood is, if that's of your opinion, we're going to get relegated. So if he's not a Premier League manager and he's a Championship manager, who's the best manager to have? I saw this with Sheffield United a few years ago. They sacked Chris Wilder, yet Chris Wilder was at the top of everybody's list to get teams promoted. It hasn't quite worked out like that, but do you know, it's. I know football's fickle. I know it's such a place, but it's so important, like you say, that the owners have stuck by him. There's people losing their jobs. Do you know, we hear about it every day. This guy's not in favour. This guy's out. This guy's in. You know, but who's the one? Who's remaining that one consistent now? Who is the what's the best word? I don't want to be derogatory, but the owner, we know, is quick to sort of hire and fire.
Yeah.
But who's the guy still in the job? And I know he's probably been close to it, you know. Well, I don't know. I've heard as much as everybody else has that he's probably been close to losing his job. But they still must see something in him, you know, for him to be there. And I think it's important to remember that. And in the space of a few months, that, you know, there's a comment right there. Is Potter a Prem manager? Do you know, on the face of it, yesterday, no. But do you know, it's different situations, and I believe the situation we're in, like you say, in a bit of a shit show, was the term you put on it. You'd want Steve Cooper to pull you out of it, because you know only 12 months ago, 15 months ago, he come in and he pulled us out of a much worse position.
Well, look at it this way. Put Pep in charge of Forest at the beginning of this season. Where would our position be in the table? You think we'd be 10th? I don't think so.
Do you know, and there was big rumours at one point about Rafa Benitez, wasn't there?
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
Who wants that? Seriously.
We have the guy. That? We are so lucky to have the guy. Modern football, you know it very well. It's just so hyperbolic. There's just, you know, no patience at all, and it's a function of the times. You know, Alex Ferguson never would have made it at Man United in the 2020s. Not a chance. It took him several years to build a dynasty.
Absolutely. There's a comment here as well. Rebels, I don't think Cluffy got the win in his first 7 or 8 games.
Great point.
Absolutely. And football is different now to then. You know, managers don't get as long, and there's expectation. I always say you're only 3 games away from a crisis in the Premier League, or if you're a Forest fan, only 1 game away from a crisis. But no, I think, and then another comment, Souness was asking on Sky after the game, who picked the signings? He's done a good job. I got a little bit on my soapbox on the last DoreOnTour I was on about Cooper being served up a load of rubbish. Do you know, because some of these players are rubbish. It's all right, people wanting to stick by them, but they've now had 17 games. Do you know, over 3 or 4, you might be finding your feet. And we talked about Brennan finding his feet, but some of them are supposed to be world class. Some of them are supposed to be the creme of what was available in the summer, and they're not. It's as simple as that. They're not. He was served up rubbish and expected to work his magic with it. Victim of his own success, I guess. You know, you can do anything,
right?
But it's not like that, is it? He'd have done research he'd have known the Championship inside out. He'd have researched them players in a different manner for when he was an opponent at Swansea. You know, and now he's coming up against players. He's using players he doesn't even know.
Right.
Do you see my point there? So I think it's so important that we stick by this guy. Like you say, this guy is the guy to take us forward, whether it is in the Premier League this next season or not. For Forest to move in the right direction, we need this consistency, because you look at the successful managers, the guys who've kept teams in the Premier League. Guys, eventually he came short, but he'd had a job for a long time. You look at sort of the guys in position, you know, who they stick with, and Pep, obviously they're successful. Liverpool, they're successful. They're not having a great season.
Right.
You know, but it's important to have that, because what's the point every 6 months changing your philosophy on football, trying to drill new ideas into players that aren't good enough anyway? So I think it's so important that we remember what this guy's done, and again, how far we came in 2022.
No, it's very easy to lose sight of that. You know, there's always this recency bias. You know, just to be either, you know, we won the last game, so we're going up, or we're going to stay up, or we lost the last game. Oh, it's all doom and gloom. It's one thing I'll have to say about Door too, about this channel. To me, it represents kind of an oasis of kind of thoughtful thinking and calmness. There's not a lot of hyperbolic people on the channel. I've learned so much tuning in and listening to the different panelists and whatnot, because it's very, very level-headed group of Forest fans. I'm not sure how that happened, but it's a subset that's very much a thoughtful group. And I think that's a big credit to Door.
Absolutely, and you know me in my other life as Mr. Do Daily. You know, I try and look at these things in perspective, and one thing I always say, and you see it on these inspirational things, is people attract to their sorts, don't they?
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
100%.
we all attract to our sorts. Door has got a real enthusiasm, real positivity to Forest, and I think that's a good way to end. You know,
Yeah.
And that's all we're trying to do. Nobody is going into this blind. We all go to games. We all understand when it's bad, when it's good, when it's indifferent. You know, and I just think it's important just to keep that perspective and understand that you can enjoy it. That's the thing I've been saying here, Chris. You know, a lot of people are losing their head.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we pay a lot of money to go to football. Why get angry as soon as you step into a stadium?
Right.
Or as soon as you step out of it?
It's supposed to be fun, Des.
Absolutely. It's supposed to be fun. And that is a great way to end. And I'm going to thank you for joining me again.
I appreciate it.
I really, really appreciate those comments at the end as well. I'm sure that's music to Door's ears as well. So really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully you have a great evening across the pond.
You got it. I'm going to go eat dinner now. Have a good night.
Okay, I'm going to go go to bed. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye. No, brilliant guest there, Chris. He's always so sort of thoughtful in what he says, and he's really getting behind Cooper there. I think every week on this, we come back to that conversation. Because it's important. He's the most important bloke at this football club right now. He is what Forest is all about. For me, for many other fans, you know, and Chris mentioned Door there, you know, I say it all the time. I do this to support him. I don't do it because I need to do it. You know, I do it because I like talking about football, and I love this guy's positivity for what he does. There is a level-headedness about the group. We are kind of attracted to each other, and we enthuse about it. We jump up and down. We get called happy clappers. We take pictures, you know. But that's what football's all about, isn't it? And that's all we're trying to do through the channel as well. Just make it a little bit fun, you know, a little bit, give people the chance to come in, be part of it, you know, be part of what we are. If you don't want to be that, you know, there's always other places to go. So a great way to end there. Really, really enjoyed my first dial-in with Des back. Probably gone on a bit longer than I expected, but that's the way it is. Thank you to everybody who's dropped a comment in as well. Everybody who's been on. It's been absolutely amazing to see the same names. Eve says they're a great stream. I'm not sure who said this, if it's the same, Chris, but best looking as well. Obviously means me, not Door. Mark says, well done, Des, mate. Again, really appreciate the support, guys. I'm not a natural at this, as you can see, just real fans talking about the thing we love. We're not trying to be pretentious or know-it-alls. We just say it as we see it. Try and put out something different. Try and interact with other Forest fans around the world. As you've seen today, we had Albertus at the start and Chris at the end, bookending it, as Chris says. And that's brilliant, isn't it, when we can all sort of enjoy the same thing and do what we do. I love doing dialing with Des. I'll be back to try and be a little bit better again next week. But that's my own personal thing. Hopefully, we're talking about a much better performance from Forest. 3 points and success in the FA Cup. That'll be a top week, wouldn't it? Out of those 3 games, progress and 4 points out of potentially 6 will be really, really firing in 2023. So really, really looking forward to it. Mark says, well done, Des. Chris echoes the same. Well done, guys, for being part of it. Really, really appreciate the good comments. As Dore always says, we're going to end the show with the usual Up the Forest.